She texted, "I accidentally threw out your laptop. Oops. My master's thesis was on it due in 3 days." I replied, "Accidents happen." Then I recovered everything from cloud backup, graduated with honors, and sent her the invoice for data recovery, $8,900. When she realized accidentally had legal consequences. Original post. I, 27 male, just finished my master's in structural engineering. Graduated with honors last Saturday. My mother cried. My advisor shook my hand for an uncomfortably long time. I ate an entire sheet cake by myself that evening. Life is good, but the reason I'm posting isn't the graduation. It's the story of how my now ex-girlfriend deliberately destroyed my laptop 3 days before my thesis was due, thought she'd ended my academic career, and is now dealing with the legal and financial fallout of that decision. Strap in. This one's a ride. My ex and I dated for 1.5 years. We didn't live together, but we had keys to each other's apartments. She worked in pharmaceutical sales and made decent money, better than a grad student for sure. That was never an issue for me, but it was quietly an issue for her. She'd make comments like, "Must be nice to just go to school all day," or, "When you get a real job, we can finally do real vacations." I brushed it off because I'm an idiot who thought love meant tolerating disrespect if it came with a smile. My thesis was my life for the last 8 months. Structural analysis modeling for seismic retrofit of mid-rise concrete buildings. If that sounds boring to you, you're right, it is boring to most people. But it was boring, and it was 146 pages of research, original modeling, data analysis, and conclusions that represented 2.5 years of graduate work. My entire degree hinged on this document and the defense presentation that followed. I worked on it primarily on my laptop, a ThinkPad X1 Carbon that I'd bought refurbished for $1,100. That laptop was my office, my library, my lab. Everything was on there. I also backed everything up to cloud storage through my university's OneDrive system, because I'm an engineer and redundancy isn't just a concept, it's a lifestyle. My thesis folder synced automatically every time I saved. I also kept a USB backup that I updated weekly, which I kept in my desk drawer at the engineering lab on campus. Remember those backups. They matter. 3 days before my thesis was due, I was at the campus library doing final formatting. My phone buzzed. Text from my ex. "Hey, so don't be mad, but I accidentally threw out your laptop. It was on the kitchen counter, and I thought it was that old one you said you were getting rid of." Oops, woman shrugging, "Sorry, babe." I stared at that text for a full minute. Let me break down what was wrong with it. 1. I'd never said I was getting rid of any laptop. I don't own an old one. I own one laptop. She knew this. 2. My ThinkPad is black, sleek, and clearly a functioning computer. It doesn't look like garbage. It had stickers on it, a university engineering department sticker, and one from a conference I presented at. You don't accidentally mistake that for trash. 3. Throughout is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. My apartment complex has a dumpster. Trash pickup is Tuesday and Friday. This was a Wednesday, which means if she threw it out the day before, it was gone. Compacted in a truck somewhere. Unrecoverable. 4. The emoji. The shrug emoji. After destroying the device containing my entire thesis 3 days before deadline. Woman shrugging. I know what she expected me to do. She expected me to panic, to call her screaming, to beg, to spiral, to maybe even cry, because she knew, she absolutely knew, what was on that laptop. I'd told her 100 times. She watched me work on it at her place. She complained about me working on it at her place. She'd said, twice in the last month, "You care more about that stupid paper than you care about me." That stupid paper was my career, and she knew exactly what she was doing when she threw it in a dumpster. But here's the thing about being an engineer. We plan for failure. It's literally what I study, how buildings survive the thing that's supposed to destroy them. And I'd built my own redundancy system. I opened OneDrive on my library computer. Everything was there. Every chapter, every figure, every data table. My last sync was from 10 p.m. the night before, which meant I'd only lost about 3 hours of formatting work. 3 hours. Not 146 pages. Not 2.5 years. 3 hours. I took a breath. Then I replied to her text. Accidents happen. No worries. That's it. 4 words. No panic. No anger. No exclamation points. Just calm. She didn't respond for 2 hours. I think she was waiting for the breakdown that never came. When she finally texted back, she said, "Wait, you're not upset? Your whole thesis was on there." I said, "Yeah, it's fine. I'll figure it out. Gotta get back to work, though." She sent 3 more texts that evening fishing for a reaction. "Are you sure you're okay? And I feel so bad about it. And let me know if you need anything." I gray-rocked every single one. One-word answers. Calm. Unbothered. Meanwhile, I was anything but calm. I was furious. But I was also busy. I downloaded everything from OneDrive, recreated my 3 hours of lost formatting, and submitted my thesis at 11:47 p.m. the night before the deadline. On time. Complete. 146 pages. The next day, I called my apartment complex and asked about security cameras in the trash area. They said yes, there were cameras on the dumpster enclosure. I asked if I could get footage from Tuesday between, say, 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. The property manager said I need to file a police report first to justify pulling the footage. So I went to the police station and filed a report for destruction of property. My laptop was worth $1,100. In my state, intentional destruction of property over $1,000 is a misdemeanor. I showed the officer her text message. He read it, looked at me, and said, "She texted you that she threw out your computer and added a shrug emoji?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "People are something else, man." Report filed. Case number assigned. I gave it to my property manager, who pulled the footage. And there she was, clear as day, at 3:22 p.m. on Tuesday, walking to the dumpster enclosure with my ThinkPad under her arm. Not in a trash bag. Not mixed in with garbage. She carried it by itself, opened the dumpster lid, and dropped it in. Then she wiped her hands together, literally dusted off her hands like she'd just taken out regular trash, and walked back inside. That's not an accident. That's a performance. I saved that footage. I saved her texts. I saved everything. Then I went and got an estimate for data recovery. Not because I needed it, since I had my cloud backup, but because the laptop itself was destroyed and a professional data recovery service assessed the physical damage to the hard drive. The assessment came back at $1,100 for the laptop replacement value, plus $890 for the diagnostic and assessment fee, totaling $1,990. But I also got a quote for what full data recovery would have cost if I hadn't had cloud backup, $8,900. Because my drive had modeling software data, proprietary university license analysis files, and 2 years of research that would have required specialized sector-by-sector recovery. I kept both numbers in my pocket. I need them soon. Update 1, 10 days later. All right, y'all. The first post got way more attention than I expected. A lot of you asking what happened next, so here we go. After I filed the police report and got the security footage, I didn't contact my ex for 5 days. 5 full days of silence. During that time, I defended my thesis. My committee passed me unanimously. One professor called my seismic modeling elegant, which is the engineering equivalent of a standing ovation. And I started consulting with a lawyer about my options. During those 5 days of silence, my ex went through what I can only describe as an escalating spiral of confusion. Day 1 of silence. "Hey, are you okay? You've been quiet." Day 2, "Hello? Are you ignoring me?" Day 3, "This is really immature." I said I was sorry about the laptop. It was an accident. Day 4, "My mom thinks you're being ridiculous BTW. It's just a computer. You could buy another one." Day 5, "Fine. If you want to throw away a year and a half over a laptop, that's on you." Day 5, 2 hours later, "I can't believe you're doing this to me." I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I was playing games, but because I was busy graduating, and also because every text she sent was another piece of documentation showing her mindset. It's just a computer. It was an accident. You're being ridiculous. All of it establishing that she considered destroying my property to be a minor inconvenience that I should just get over. On day 6, I called her and said we needed to talk in person. She agreed immediately. I think she assumed this was the reconciliation conversation. She showed up to my apartment in a nice outfit, hair done, perfume on. She thought this was a makeup date. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a manila folder. She walked in, saw the folder, and her face shifted. She said, "What is that?" I said, "Sit down." She sat. I opened the folder and laid out the following items, one by one, like a poker player showing a winning hand. First, a printed screenshot of her text message. "I accidentally threw out your laptop. Oops, woman shrugging." Second, a still frame from the security camera footage showing her carrying my laptop to the dumpster. Date and time stamp visible. Third, the police report. Case number, officer's name, description of the incident, classification as intentional destruction of property. Fourth, the data recovery assessment showing the $8,900 quote for what recovery would have cost without backup. Fifth, a letter from my lawyer outlining my intention to pursue civil damages for the destroyed property and associated costs. She stared at the papers for a long time. Then she looked up and said, "You went to the police? Over a laptop?" I said, "Over a $1,100 laptop containing my master's thesis, destroyed intentionally 3 days before it was due." "Yes." She said, "I told you it was an accident." I pointed to the security footage still. "You carried it to the dumpster by itself. Not in a bag. Not with other trash. You carried a laptop in your hand, opened the lid, and dropped it in. Then you dusted off your hands." She went pale. Actually pale. I don't think she knew there were cameras. Then she switched tactics. Tears. Immediate tears. "I can't believe you're doing this. I made a mistake, and you're trying to ruin my life. Do you know what a police report does to someone? I work in pharma sales. I have background checks." I said, "You should have thought about that before you destroyed my property." She said, "Why are you being like this? It's just a stupid computer. You have her dumb degree. What does it even matter now?" I said, "It matters because you did it on purpose. You knew my thesis was on there. You knew my deadline. And you threw it away because you were angry that I wasn't giving you enough attention. That's not an accident. That's sabotage." She denied it. Of course she denied it. She said she mixed it up with a broken tablet she thought was in the kitchen. I don't own a tablet. She knows I don't own a tablet. But she committed to the lie like it was paying her rent. I told her we were done. I told her she'd be hearing from my lawyer. She left crying and called me a psychopath on her way out the door. Real classy. Within hours, the family cavalry arrived. Her mother called me. This woman, who I'd had dinner with maybe 6 times, called me and opened with, "I understand you're upset about a computer, but filing a police report against my daughter is absolutely unhinged. She's a young woman with a career. You could ruin her record over an accident." I said, "Ma'am, I have security footage of your daughter deliberately throwing my laptop in a dumpster 3 days before my thesis deadline. It wasn't an accident. I also have her text messages." She paused. Then she said, "Well, whatever happened, going to the police is an overreaction. Couples have arguments. You don't bring the law into a relationship." I said, "We're not in a relationship anymore. And destroying someone's property isn't an argument. It's a crime." She called me vindictive and hung up. Her father texted me later that evening. Short message. "Drop the charges or you'll regret it." Real threatening. Very cool. I screenshotted it and sent it to my lawyer. Then something happened that I genuinely didn't expect. Her younger brother, who I'd always gotten along with, we used to play pickup basketball on weekends, texted me. He said, "Hey man, I'm sorry about all this. I want you to know I'm not part of whatever they're doing. What she did was wrong, and I told her that. She didn't listen. She never does." Then he said, "She did something similar to her college roommate a few years ago. Threw the girl's external hard drive in the bathtub during a fight. The roommate never pressed charges, but she moved out the next day. I thought she'd grown out of it. A pattern. It's always a pattern." I thanked the brother, told him no hard feelings with him, and saved that text too, because patterns matter in court. Meanwhile, my thesis was submitted, my defense was done, and my degree was in the bag. Everything she tried to destroy survived, because I planned for failure and she didn't plan for cameras. Update 2, 6 weeks later. Last update. Closing this chapter out. The legal side moved faster than I expected. My lawyer sent her a formal demand letter, $1,100 for the laptop replacement, $890 for the data recovery assessment fee, which I actually paid, and $1,200 in legal fees. Total, $3,190. We deliberately did not include the $8,900 $900 hypothetical recovery cost in the demand. My lawyer said it was stronger to keep the claim tight. Actual damages only fully documented. You want the judge to see a reasonable plaintiff, not a vindictive ex, he said. Smart guy. We gave her 30 days to respond. Her response came on day 28 through a lawyer her parents hired. Their counter, $0. Their argument? The laptop was disposed of in good faith based on a reasonable misunderstanding, and that my filing a police report constituted harassment and emotional abuse against their client. Emotional abuse. She destroyed my thesis laptop on purpose, and I'm the abuser for reporting it. I swear the audacity has its own zip code. My lawyer wasn't worried. He said, they're posturing. They know the footage exists. This is a bluff to see if you'll fold. I didn't fold. We filed in small claims court. In my state, small claims handles cases up to $10,000, and you don't need a lawyer to appear, though I had mine on standby for advice. The filing fee was $75. Between the demand letter and the court date, she tried two more things worth mentioning. First, she had her mother call my mother. My mother. Her mom apparently got my mom's number from an old group chat from when we'd all had dinner together once. Her mother called mine and said that I was harassing her daughter through the legal system and that my mother needed to talk some sense into me before this gets out of hand. My mother, who is a retired paralegal and takes absolutely zero nonsense from anyone, said, my son is pursuing a legitimate legal claim backed by evidence. If your daughter didn't want legal consequences, she shouldn't have committed a crime. Don't call this number again. And hung up. I come by the backbone honestly. Second, my ex sent me an email. She couldn't text because I'd blocked her number, with a long, rambling message about how I'd changed and become cold and calculating, and that the real me would have forgiven her. She said she'd been going through a hard time when it happened. She never specified what hard time, and that destroying the laptop was a cry for help that I should have responded to with compassion, not lawyers. A cry for help. She tied my thesis into a dumpster as a cry for help. Ma'am, that's not a cry for help. That's targeted sabotage with a shrug emoji. I didn't respond. My lawyer said don't engage, so I didn't. The small claims hearing happened on a Wednesday morning. I showed up with my evidence organized in a binder. I'm an engineer. I organize things. The binder had tabs, text messages, security footage, on a USB drive with printed stills, the police report, the data recovery assessment, the laptop purchase receipt, and a timeline of events. She showed up with her parents and their lawyer, who technically couldn't represent her in small claims, but was there as an advisor. The judge noticed him immediately and said, Sir, is she represented by counsel? He said no. He was just there for support. The judge said, then sit in the gallery and don't speak. Beautiful. I presented my case first. I kept it simple. Your Honor, on this date, my then-girlfriend entered my apartment and disposed of my laptop in the building dumpster. The laptop contained my master's thesis, which was due in 3 days. She sent me a text message describing it as an accident. Security footage from my apartment complex shows her carrying the laptop alone, not with other trash, and placing it in the dumpster deliberately. I'm seeking $3,190, $1,100 for the laptop, $890 for the data recovery assessment I paid for, and $1,200 in legal consultation fees. I handed the judge the binder. He reviewed the footage on the USB drive using the court's equipment. He read the text messages. He looked at the security stills. Then he turned to her and said, What's your response? She stood up and, I swear to you, said, It was an accident, Your Honor. I thought it was an old device he was getting rid of. The judge held up the security still, the one showing her carrying just the laptop, nothing else, to the dumpster. He said, You carried this one item by itself to the dumpster. Can you explain why you would carry a single item that you believed was trash to the dumpster rather than putting it in a trash bag with other waste? She said, I was just cleaning up. He said, at 3:22 p.m. on a Tuesday, you walked from the apartment to the dumpster carrying only this laptop. Your text message says you confused it with an old device. Does a respondent own an old device that looks like this? She looked at her parents. Her lawyer advisor shifted in his seat. She said, I thought he did. The judge said, Sir, looking at me, do you own another laptop or device that resembles this one? I said, no, Your Honor. I own one laptop. She's been to my apartment hundreds of times and has seen me work on this specific laptop exclusively. The judge looked back at her and said, I'm going to be straightforward. The evidence strongly suggests this was intentional. The text message, the security footage, and the timing, 3 days before a major academic deadline, paint a clear picture. I don't find the accident defense credible. Her mother made a noise from the gallery, like a gasp mixed with a scoff. The judge glanced at her, and she went quiet. He ruled in my favor. Full amount, $3,190. He also added a note to the record that the destruction appeared intentional, which matters because that note lives in the court system. It's public. If she ever ends up in another property dispute, it's findable. She has 30 days to pay. If she doesn't, I can pursue wage garnishment. After the ruling, I walked out of the courthouse. Her father followed me into the parking lot and said, You happy now? You just took $3,000 from my daughter over a laptop. I said, Your daughter took 2.5 years of work from me over a grudge. I'd say she got off light. He didn't have a response for that. He just shook his head and walked away. Her brother texted me that evening, heard about the ruling. For what it's worth, I think it was fair. Sorry about my family. I told him I appreciated it and that I had no issues with him. Good dude. Wrong family. Now here's the part about the $8,900. A lot of you are going to ask about the invoice mentioned in the title. Here's the truth. I never actually sent her an $8,900 bill. What I did do was include the $8,900 data recovery quote in my evidence binder as an exhibit showing what the damage could have cost me if I hadn't had a cloud backup. The judge saw it. She saw it. Her parents saw it. And the look on her face when she realized that the only thing standing between her and an $8,900 judgment was my habit of backing up files to the cloud. That was worth more than any invoice I could have sent. She didn't dodge $8,900 because she was lucky. She dodged it because I was prepared. And she knows that now. She knows that her little sabotage attempt, her cute, oops woman shrugging moment, almost cost her nearly $9,000 on top of the $3,190 she now owes. All because she was jealous of a thesis. The criminal side is still technically open. The police report exists. The case was assigned to a detective, but realistically, misdemeanor property destruction cases don't get a ton of prosecutorial attention. My lawyer said the DA might offer her a deferred adjudication or just let it go. Either way, the record exists. The court judgment exists. The security footage exists. If she ever does this to someone else, and based on the bathtub hard drive story, she might, there's a paper trail now. As for me, I graduated. Honors. My thesis is published in the university's digital repository. My name is on it. My research is cited. Nobody can throw that in a dumpster. I started my first real engineering job 3 weeks ago. The pay is decent, the work is interesting, and my new laptop, another ThinkPad because loyalty backs up to 3 separate cloud services because I'm never going through this again. The $287 in filing fees, the lawyer consultations, the data recovery assessment, all of that came out of my pocket. I'm a fresh grad with student loans. It wasn't cheap, but some things aren't about money. They're about the principle that you don't get to destroy someone's work and walk away with a shrug emoji. My ex still hasn't paid the $3,190. She has 12 more days. My lawyer has the wage garnishment paperwork ready to file. I hope she pays. I genuinely do. Not because I need the money, though I could use it, but because paying it means acknowledging what she did. And I think deep down, that's the part she can't stomach. Not the amount. The acknowledgement. Last thing. A lot of you in my DMs are asking if I'm angry. Honestly? No, not anymore. I was angry the night she sent that text. I was furious when I saw the shrug emoji. But somewhere between submitting my thesis on time, defending it successfully, and watching a judge look at security footage of her carrying my laptop to a dumpster, the anger turned into something else. Not satisfaction exactly. More like clarity. The clarity that comes from knowing you built something she couldn't destroy, no matter how hard she tried. She threw my laptop in a dumpster. I graduated with honors. I think the scoreboard speaks for itself. Thanks for following along, everyone. Going back to work now. I've got bridge load calculations due Friday, and unlike my ex, I don't miss deadlines.